Hello and welcome to part 11. In this part, we'll be working on the front end and we'll be validating the registration form. Now, to validate the registration form, we'll be using two libraries, the Formik and the other one is called YUP. The YUP will help us in validating the data, and the Formik will help us in submitting the form and handling the errors. So in our front folder where we are working on the front end, we go to the src folder, then in the components we have the registration form, which where we will apply the registration, the validation I mean. So in the registration form, and before doing anything first, let's install the Formik with yarn add Formik. Then we will install the YUP package with yarn add YUP. Alright, now once we have both of the library in our package, we can import first the Formik. Import Formik from Formik, and then what we will do, we will wrap our form with the Formik component that we have just imported. So I will grab the form and I will wrap it with Formik. Alright, now we have the Formik wrapping our form. What we need to do is define some props. The first one is the initial values, which will be equal to an object that contains the initial value for each field. So we'll start with the name, will be empty string, then the email also will be empty string, same for the rest, the password and the password, all will be empty string. Then we'll have the validate, which will receive a function, and this function will receive the values in the parameter. Now here we add our validation logic. Now as I told you, for the validation we'll use the YUP, but I will do some manual validation just to show you how to work with Formik without YUP. So let's validate only the name to simplify the example. So for the name, first I'll create the error object, which I need to return at the end. And here I'll add some restriction, and based on the check, I may add some errors to this object. So I will check if not values dot name, then I will add an errors dot name, which signifies that this error is for the field name, which will be required. All right. Else if errors dot name dot length is lesser than 4, then we'll add a message for the errors dot name. Name must be more than 4 characters. All right. Next, we'll set the prop on submit, which will be also a function, and in this function we'll get the values, and we'll grab from the second parameter, which is an object, we'll grab the on submitting. All right, and in the function body we'll create a set timeout just to simulate a server. So here we'll alert the values. Sorry, here it is set submitting, and we'll set the set submitting to false. We run this function after let's say 600 millisecond. Now the Formik component require a function that will return the form component. We'll send it as a child a function. Alright, now this function need to return the form component, so we'll return the form component, and this function will receive as a parameter an object. We'll destructure from this object the values, then the errors, then the touch, handle change, handle blur, handle submit, then finally is submitting. Alright, we will be using this to set up here our form. First we'll start in the form component. Let's first remove this class, it's useless now. The class page P now is useless. Here it is, page and page.b, we have commented it. Let's remove the wall page element from our CSS, and here back to our form. So on submit we'll provide to it the handle submit. Then for each label we need to provide the on change, handle change, then on blur, handle blur, and finally the value will be values dot the name of this field dot name. Alright, now I'll copy these three props and paste them for the other inputs. Alright, changing the here the name to the name of the field. Alright, now for the button I need to disable it. Alright, once the form is working, so I will set the value of disable to the is submitting, which is provided in the parameter. Now for the errors, below each input we'll add a check, so we'll check errors dot name and touched dot name and errors dot name. Here it will check if error dot name exists and touched dot name also exists. Finally, if both are true, it will print the errors dot name. So we'll do this for each field. Here we'll change it to email. Here or to password, and finally the repassword. Alright, now let's give it a try. Remember that we are only validating the name field, so we expect in the name field to have some validation in case the data is wrong. So let's start our server with yarn start. Alright, now if I submit the form as it is, I'll get the message required for the full name. Now if I type 2 letter, I get an error length of undefined. Right, let me make sure in the validate function errors, I'm sorry, it's values not errors, values.name.length. Alright, as you can see I get the message below, name must be more than 4 characters. Alright, Now if I fix it, it will be removed. Alright, let's validate the other fields using YUP package. Let's import YUP. So import star as YUP from YUP, and let's create the validation schema equal, let's make it a constant, equal YUP dot object dot shape. Now the shape take as a parameter the object that define the restriction validation. Here the name will be yup dot string dot required, alright, dot min for. Alright, now this is for the name. Here we can pass for the required a string message to replace the default one, and the same here we can replace a string message for the min. Now for the email it will be yup.string dot required dot email. Alright, this is for the email. For the password it will be yup.string dot required, alright, dot min 8. Now for the repassword it will be also string dot required dot. Now here we have a special case. The password and the repassword need to match. Now in able to do this with YUP, we have a special function, the one-off. So the one-off takes an array and check the value of the password whether it is one of these items in the array. If not, it will return an error. So it will be one-off. Here we specify the value of the password. So we provide only one item, and it is the value of the password field. Now to get the value of the password field, also YUP provide us a ref. This way we'll get the password value, and in the second parameter we can provide our custom message. Alright, now this is it for the validation. Now we need to feed this validation to Formik, and Formik provide a special prop for the YUP schema, which is validation schema. Alright, and we provide to it the schema we just defined at the top. Then we'll remove this validate prop. Alright, now I have an error with the required. I mistyped the name, so it's required. Now back to our browser to test. Now if I submit the form as it is, alright, I'll get the error messages, and if I fix one, it will be validated as properly. Now for the email I need to provide a valid email. For the password it will need to be more than 8 characters, and for the verified password it need to match. Now whatever I type, I'll get the error unless it is matched. So alright, and if in case if I have an error, I can submit the form. But if everything is okay, if I save, I'll get the message. Now I cannot click the form more than once, alright, but we have problem in the visual, so the disable is not visually visible. So we'll fix this in the styles here in our button rules. Here we'll add and disabled. We'll set the background color to var -- the light gray color. So if we test again, alright. What next? Next we need to style the errors. Formik actually provide to us a component, a helper component that will help us in errors. So it is error message. Now we can rely on this component here to replace these errors. Now with error message we can provide, we need to provide the name of this field. So name is name, all right, and the component will have it here a span, all right. So we need to specify the name is required, and if you want your error text to be brought in a component, you need to specify this too. So I'll copy the error for each field and put the respective name. Here it is email, and here it is password, and finally here it is repassword. All right. So if we go to our browser and check an error message, we'll see that it has a span wrapping it. Now we can style this error message, but to style it we need to provide to it a class. So I'll grab all the error messages and provide to them a class name error. The class name is double S, of course. Now I need to style the error. Here in the form we have the field selector where we are styling the label and the input. We'll add one for the error, which will have the color of red. So we'll set the color to var -- primary color, which is red, and we'll check. So if I submit, I'll get the messages in red. Then I'll add some padding, 5 pixels on top and bottom. 5 pixels is okay. Let's make it padding top, just for the top, 8 pixels, and the font size will make it 14 pixels. All right, awesome. This is awesome. Also, the Formik provide to us the form component, which we can use it instead of the form native element. The form component will relieve us from specifying the onSubmit, so we can replace it like this and like this. All right. So this is for the form. Now the handle submit, we don't need it anymore. Same for the errors and touched. Great. Also, it will provide us a field component. It is a helper component that also relieve us from specifying the values, the on blur and on change. So here we can replace the input with the field component. This way we can remove these 3 elements. Same for the other fields. All right. Let's have a check. So if I reload and submit the form, again everything work as expected, which is perfect. So basically this is it for the validation. Now of course YUP has more validation rules. You can check it in the official documentation here on the GitHub. So if you search on Google YUP, you will be redirected to their GitHub. Same for the Formik. Formik has their official documentation in their official website, which is formik.org, where you can check the documentation for more details. Alright, this is it for our video. Thank you for watching. In the next video, we'll implement the onSubmit handle here, this function, where we'll be submitting our form data to our API. Remember, in the last video concerning the API, we have created an endpoint /users, which allows the consumer of the API to add new users. So we'll be using this endpoint here in this function to submit a new user. Alright, thank you for watching. See you soon.